Hi guys. Sorry about class last week. I was really sick and I just couldn't do it. Couldn't get into class. So I was gonna make a video for chapter five, but I realized there's a pretty good video online already. So I suggest that you watch the video under chapter five, the one that's included on the online thing, and that's pretty good. What I'm gonna do to make up this week for not being there last week is I'm gonna do virtual lecture, just you and me on this computer, talking about a couple issues from chapter 6. Okay. Before we dive into this, the other important thing to note is that I'm changing the schedule. So remember, I'm talking to you right now from Ito, Brazil. I just got well enough in time to get on the plane and get down here for this wedding I'm at. So we don't meet this week as makeup, but we'll start. I'm going to change all the schedules. Please check the schedules for in person classes. They're going to be every week for the rest of the semester, except for Thanksgiving weekend. Okay, and this is a chance for me to make up for you. Remember, as you all well know, uh, you, it's voluntary. Attendance is voluntary, but it's a chance for you to get extra credit. Okay, so anyway, with that said, as of today, Monday, 11/11, the schedules be updated to show the new ones. Also, every week I will send reminders reminding about whether it's online or in person. It's online this week, but after that, except for the week of Thanksgiving, I'll be in person every day to help go over material, and so we can make some of this up and you can get more extra credit points. Okay? All right, so we're going to talk about chapter 6, which is self discipline. Some of the goals for this chapter are to define self discipline and cite its benefits, explain how to control impulses, describe the process of replacing bad habits with good ones, define critical thinking, which I'm going to, and it's 7 standards. I'm going to let you work on that on your own. It's pretty straightforward. And list the steps in the decision making process. So I'm going to, in this short lecture, cover about all of it except the critical thinking, and you're free to do that on your own. Okay. So the book says that self discipline is the process of teaching yourself to do what is necessary to reach your goals without becoming sidetracked by bad habits. So, if you can develop a higher level of self discipline, the book says you can control your destiny. And I'm a little skeptical. Sometimes I think there's a lot of stuff outside of our control, but we can still, there's a lot of things we can't control, but there's some things we can. Okay. I would say the book is really a little too optimistic about all the things we can control, but there are things we can, right? There's things we can control. Another aspect of if you strengthen your self discipline, you can persist in the face of setbacks. You can take into consideration the long term consequences of your actions. You can make positive changes. You can break bad habits. You can make good decisions. So let's talk about the different elements of self-discipline. Discipline comes from the Latin word to teach. Also, that's where, if you're interested in the Bible at all, that's where disciple comes from too, right? From the same Latin word to teach. So here's the book talks about different elements of self-discipline. First is persistence. Remember, we talked about this as an aspect of conscientiousness when we talked about the big five. So the idea of persistence is, what do you do when a goal, you have a goal and a barrier comes up, an obstacle comes up. Do you give up? Do you keep going? Do you try to figure out a workaround? And do you persist in your goal? Persistence is an important aspect of self-discipline. Also, self-determination, which means determining the path of your life travels. Responsibility is another element. So the idea is that you can learn how to not only make choices for yourself, but accept the consequences of those choices. All right. So, an important part of self discipline is this whole idea of impulse control. They've done some really interesting research on this. Here's a really funny, interesting research study they did, like the best study on impulse control in the history of psychology. They took these, I think they were 4-year-old kids, 3-year-old or 4-year-old kids, and they said, here's the deal. We're going to leave you in this room with this one marshmallow on the table. You can eat the marshmallow if you want. But if you wait 5 minutes and don't eat it, we will give you 2 mushrooms instead of the one. And then this is the type of research you can do if you become a psychologist. And so then they put the kid at the table with the mushroom in front of the table, and they left the room. And they had a camera going, and they watched. And as you can pretty well predict, some of the kids had low impulse control. Some of the kids said, screw it, I'm eating the marshmallow. And ate the marshmallow. Other of the kids, the majority of the kids ate the mushroom. A smaller minority of them were able to wait. So they really could see them looking at that marshmallow. They really, really want the marshmallow, but they waited. And then after 5 minutes, the researchers, psychologists came in and gave them the 2 marshmallows, and then they ate those 2 marshmallows. So it's an interesting study, right? Interesting study on measuring impulse control with little kids. Now you can ask the question, what the heck does that have to do with anything else, right? Who cares? Yeah, that's interesting, it's cute, it's funny. But what does that have to do with the rest of my life? If at 4-year-old, whether I could wait and not eat a marshmallow? Well, here's what they did, okay? Like 25 years later, they thought, I wonder what happened to those kids. So what they did was they kept track of their information and tracked them down and did a follow-up. And what they found was the kids that were able to, another thing for impulse control would be called delaying short-term gratification. The kids that could delay short-term gratification, meaning if I wait and not eat this one marshmallow, I'll get 2. 25 years later, they found that those people had much more success in life in terms of careers, jobs, socioeconomic status. So isn't that interesting? Now, of course, you know what you're all thinking right now. You're probably thinking, well, how do we know that's just not a trait people have? Some people are high on impulse control, and some people aren't, and you really can't change it. Well, that's not really the case. The whole point of this chapter is there are ways you can improve your impulse control, no matter how bad you are or how good you are. But it's harder for us people that have lower levels of impulse control. Also, if you've got, like me, I've got raging ADHD. One aspect of ADHD is poor impulse control. Another, if anyone has bipolar affective disorder, another aspect of bipolar, when people are in a manic state, would be low impulse control. Also, people with substance use issues. There's a little bit the question is, does the lack of impulse control come before the drug use or come after it? But anyway, the whole point is this is not just a trait, like when we talked about the personality factors. You can do things, you can do the work, look at yourself, and figure out how to improve this. And if you can improve this impulse control, if you can improve delaying short-term gratification, there's a lot of really, really, really good things that can flow from that. And there really are ways to do this. So the book talks about different ways that acting impulsively or not having that impulse control. What are the ways that hurts you? Okay, the book says wasting time, letting people down by not following through on obligations, overreacting and making comments you wish you could take back later. Social media, anybody? uh, the one that I used to get in a lot of trouble. I've been in Facebook jail 3 times. I don't really agree with it, but I was making jokes and people didn't think they were funny. Anyway, the thing that helped me with social media, sometimes what I have for a while, my daughter's grandma, my baby mama's mom. I really liked the woman. I really respected the woman. The woman had a really strong faith and was a conservative Christian and was very conservative. And I really loved her name was Myrna. I really, really loved Myrna. I liked Myrna. I didn't want to upset Myrna. So here's one little trick I came up with social media was when I get all pissed off about something and I'm ready to flame away, and I would stop and say, how would Myrna respond social media post I'm about to do. And you see what that did? I put a little delay in and a little filter, and then most of the times I didn't. It kept me out of a lot of trouble. I haven't been in Facebook jail since I started that filter. Anyway, other aspects of not having impulse control, driving dangerously, compulsive spending. What I do, I have a problem with a little bit of impulse control. I think it's part of my ADHD thing. You know, what I do, the rule I came up with, and we'll go through some of these strategies, but for compulsive spending, first of all, I stay out of stores unless I need something. Second of all, if anything costs over $50, I just have a little rule. I don't buy it until at least 24 hours have gone by. And the interesting thing with that one, what I found was that when I built in a 24-hour period, I ended up not buying a lot of stuff. See, you kind of build in some time to think about, do I really need that or not? That's one rule that really, really helped me not do that. It's not like I'm perfect. All of this is not about being perfect. It's about starting where you are and getting a little better. And if you're really, really good at all this stuff now, not like me, then great. Even getting a little bit better can help you even more. Another aspect of acting impulsively would be overeating, abusing drugs, overbiting in alcohol, or using drugs, maybe jumping into unhealthy relationships. The book talks about, you know, my daughters. Two of my daughters are lesbians, and the joke they always make about, I can say this, I think, I'm a dad of two lesbians. The joke they make is, you know what a lesbian brings to the second date? A U-Haul trailer with their stuff. That's their joke. I'm telling you, their joke. Okay, so that would be an example of jumping in. That we don't. I'm not saying this in an unhealthy relationship, but that's pretty high impulse to immediately leap into a serious relationship when you just met the person. Sometimes, maybe if you waited a little bit, maybe you wouldn't have ended up in a relationship with them. So the idea of jumping in too quick. I hope I didn't offend anyone with that joke. I think it's a funny joke. It's not my joke, it's my daughter's joke. So how do you control the impulses? I talked a couple of strategies I did. One thing is to think long term. Okay? So you can think, oh, what does it matter? What does it matter if I do this? What does it matter if I buy this thing? Or whatever. Well, there's consequences. Maybe you spend all your money on stupid little stuff now, and now Christmas is coming up, and you don't have any money to buy presents for your family. There can be long time consequences, long term. Sometimes really long term consequences, like if you get into a car accident and kill someone, or drink too much and drive and get arrested. You know, there's a lot of long time consequences sometimes. So sometimes it helps to think it through. What in the 12-step world, they have this tool called play the tape all the way through. I guess we don't have tapes anymore, right? Uh, stream stream the movie all the way through. How's that? Like to think about way down the road, how will this affect me? Right. So the book also talks about when you feel an impulse coming on, stop, think, and decide. So stop, be aware of. So this is where you take some self-awareness. Right? Be aware of what issues. I know I have a problem with buying stuff. Okay, and then so to be aware of that, to avoid online shopping unless it's for a specific thing. Um, just to figure out how to stop. I know this is a problem for me. I have to stop. Think. Think what will I gain in the short term? What will I lose in the long term by doing this? And then decide, looking at the consequences, short term and long term consequences, is it worth it or not? Sometimes it's worth it, you know. I have all these old tractors that keep breaking down, and finally I said, I'm tired of these tractors breaking down. I'm buying a new tractor. I thought about it for 2 years. I thoroughly investigated it, and you know, now I have a monthly payment of $348 for a new tractor, but it means I have a tractor that runs all the time. That was worth it. But I had to stop and think about it and look at my budget and decide, could I afford that or not? So stop, think, and decide. With the think part, looking at short-term and long-term consequences of the behavior. So with this, we're talking about how do we change? How can we embrace change? I like that the book talks a little bit about this question of what's holding you back. whatever it is. It's eating healthier, it's getting out of a relationship, it's getting into a relationship, it's trying to improve your GPA, whatever it is, what's holding you back, what's stopping you from making that decisions. Sometimes, I tell you this as a psychologist and someone who's worked as a counselor for years, sometimes, believe it or not, people sabotage themselves because they're afraid of success. I think it's easier to fail than to succeed. You succeed and now you have new responsibilities and change, which sometimes people don't like. So, uh, how do you develop the willingness to change? That's the issue. How can I create, if I'm not ready to change, how can I increase that willingness? How can I start to be open to change? Book, it seems like a big thing people are talking about now is habits. So the book talks a lot about habits. A habit is a behavior that has become automatic through repetition. It's sort of like this. Think about you walk through the woods once. It's not much of a trail. Walk through it again and again and again. A trail develops, right? Through repetition. And then eventually you can walk that trail without even looking for branches because it's such a wide path that you know. So through repetition, behavior becomes automatic. Um, so how do you know when habits are causing you problems? How do you know if it's a problem? So ask yourself some of these questions like, does this behavior make you feel unhappy or feel bad about yourself? Does it feel like it's draining your energy? There's this whole Jesuit practice I really like. It's called the examen of conscience. And here's what you do. It's a really cool thing, okay? Even without the faith component, okay? Just it's a cool exercise in looking at yourself. The idea is you ask yourself two questions, okay? And the question is, what brings energy to me? What do when I do it? It feels good. It feels like I'm being filled up with energy. And what are things that feel like they're draining energy from me? And then what the Jesuits would say is that's the universe speaking to you. Okay, the universe is speaking to you, saying the situations where you feel energy, that's the path you should follow. Now, clearly, doesn't mean I feel drained doing my homework for this class. I'm not going to do my homework for this class anymore. And the idea of you practice that, feeling that energy is this thing I'm in. Does it bring me energy or does it drain energy? Over a period of time of really reflecting on that, you can figure it out. And the whole idea that the universe is sending you messages, it's telling you what direction to go. Do your habits get you into trouble at work or school? Do they hurt or do they seriously inconvenience others? Those are all examples that the book talks about how do you know if it's a bad habit and if you should change it or not. Excuse me. So, how do we go about changing bad habits? We've got we have a 3-step process from the book. Step 1 is wanting to change. So before you have to break a bad habit, you have to want to change from that habit. So, but this is not like I don't have the willingness, I'm not going to do it. Well, you can build the willingness by really thinking about how has this habit hurt me? How is this behavior going against what I want? And if you really dwell on that, that can then start to help you want to change that. If you don't want to change it, you're not going to change it, right? If it ain't broke, you're not going to fix it. So the idea of reflecting about something and that if you reflect about how something's hurting you, that increase your desire to change, your willingness to change. The next step 2, so number 1 is wanting to change in the book. Number 2 is understanding the habit. So think about if you're in science and you have a microscope and a slide, you're putting that habit under the microscope and you're examining it. When do I do the bad habits? Like for me, I know a really bad time for the compulsive shopping is online or seeing ads on Facebook or going on Facebook Marketplace. Okay, where, like I just said, for me, Facebook Marketplace is a very dangerous place. If I'm not on there, I don't suddenly realize that I need this new thing or another car or something like that. Who's present when I give into my bad habit? So maybe there's other people influencing. How do I feel just before I give into my bad habit? And really importantly, this is like streaming the movie all the way to the end. How do I feel after I give into my bad habit? So, maybe I feel like going out drinking with friends tonight and I overdo it. And I have a test tomorrow morning for class. How am I going to feel in the morning? Play it all 3 is to replace the habit. So I got you things that just don't go away. Okay, they have to be replaced with something. So replace that with something else. And also know, I really like the book talks about this, that relapse is normal. You're going to at times go back to the habit. That's natural. And then you'll get back on course again if you want to change the habit. Um, it also suggests using positive self-talk. Encourage yourself. Notice when you're doing well. Don't condemn yourself or be really judgmental on yourself when you're going to have slip-ups. You're going to have slip-ups. Everything doesn't change overnight miraculously. So be gentle. Say, okay, well, I'm going to try to do better. Yep, that was a slip-up, and now I'm going to do better. Try to use some of that stuff we talked about with positive self-talk in earlier chapters. So I'm going to let you cover on your own the 7 standards of critical thinking. You can learn all of that. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about is steps in the decision-making process. This is near the end of the chapter. So that the book gives a 7-step process for decision making. Believe it or not, the hardest one, the first one's the hardest one, I think, and that's defining the decision. So, what is the problem? Okay, what should I do here? What's the thing to change here? If I'm fighting with my girlfriend, boyfriend, is it getting out of that relationship, or is it learning how to communicate better with my girlfriend or boyfriend, or my significant other? Defining what the decision is. Maybe the decision is, should I get out of the relationship? Maybe the decision is, how am I more positive and try to make my relationship better? Trying to decide what the decision is. You know, you want to. The book talks about framing it in a way so you don't exclude possible options. So what if it's a job you're thinking about? Should I accept this new job? And also, what the book talks about is this framing effect. How you state the question matters. Okay. So when thinking about a new job, you say, should I accept this new job? Should I settle for this new job? Do you see how the use of the word settle already has changed the way you look at it? Should I reject this new job? Should I continue my job? Should I remain unemployed? Each of those has several different ways that it's pushing you, well, most of them, towards one way. So how you frame the question, the decision, how you frame the decision is really important. After you have a situation you're trying to make a decision about, the next thing is to what we call brainstorming, listing all the possible options. Throw out as many options as you can think of, even ridiculous ones. The funny thing is, sometimes throwing out a ridiculous option ends up making you creatively look at the situation and come up with something you didn't even think of. So you just throw out as many options. What are all the different options to this decision? Next, you want to gather information. You want to you can use internet. I like to use friends I trust. Okay? If you have a friend or family member, a grandmother, an aunt, a cousin, a brother, and someone you really, really trust, go to them and lay it out and say, I'd like some feedback here. What do you think about this? Of course, you always want to be careful that they don't have, sometimes they have their own agenda. And I bought my first farm. There were a lot of problems with my farm, and I was worried I was making a mistake, and a potentially very expensive mistake, and I was worried about it. So I went and talked to my older brother. Said, all right, try to talk me out of this. Try to talk me out of buying this farm. And so we talked for like 45 minutes. And then every time he'd come up with a reason not to buy it, I'd say, well, I thought about that, and here's what I realized how I could deal with that. And after 45 minutes, my brother said, Paul, I'm getting really frustrated with this. Every time I come up with something, you just talk it away. And I go, that's the point. The point here is help me think about this situation, this decision. Help me think, is there anything I haven't, an unintended consequence I didn't think about? And when he got frustrated with me that way and couldn't come up with something, I realized, okay, I think I've gathered enough information. See? So gather information from as many different sources as possible. So state information. Next, we're going to look at what are the consequences of those options. And we're never going to know everything, right? You can do the best you can. You're never going to know everything. With the best knowledge you have, what does it look like? Then, given looking at the consequences, you can choose one. Here's the thing: decisions aren't, for the most part, aren't written in stone. Choose one option and try it. And then after you try it, after you implement that action, step 5 is choose your options. Step 6 is act. Step 7 is evaluate your progress. How is it going? Is it going well? Is it going as I hoped, as I wanted? Maybe I need to go back to try a different option. It's okay. We can fail, right? It's okay to fail. It's okay to take an action and fail and then go back and try a different one. Somehow that's how we find the right one. That's certainly been the case with me with jobs, how I ended up finding the one that I like, which is teaching you all MATC. All right. So, like I said, I covered everything from the chapter, but I did not cover the components of critical thinking. I'm going to let you do that on your own. Okay, so remember the most important thing, once again, I sincerely apologize. I don't know what it was last week. I thought it was COVID. It was not COVID. I did not test positive for COVID, but I was miserable. I could not drag myself into teach and was just knocked out. So sorry about that with last week. I hope you'll grant me a little grace. Uh, do check the schedule because now every week, not this week, but after this week, every week up until the end of the semester, except Thanksgiving, I'll be meeting in class to go over course material with you and also for your chance to build up on those extra credit points, right, by attending in class. Okay, thanks a lot. And once again, sorry about missing last week. And we'll see you next week. And thanks. Take care.